guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is gonna be a little bit out of order. I know that I just posted my mid-year wrap-up, but because I took a break from filming and posting things, I never posted wrap-ups for the last few months. So in today's video, we're gonna go over the 17 books that I read in March and April, and I am going to rank them from worst to best. I apologize, you guys already have seen that I like to reference my notes a lot because I have a terrible memory, but I'm gonna be referencing them a little extra this video just because it has been a few months since I've read these books. I don't remember a ton about them. My brain is kind of the type to read and then dump. I have my list in order and then also my reviews on my phone, so I'm just going to be referencing it a lot. I will try my best not to be staring at my phone the entire time, but we'll see how it goes. Out of the 17 books that I read, 2 of them were DNFs, so we'll start with those. The first one is the Empusium by, I don't remember the author's name, but it was a translated work. I already unhauled this. The Empusium was like a health resort story. It's about this guy who moves into a health resort. I don't know why in my brain I want to say it's a mental health center. I don't think it is. I feel like it was for tuberculosis or something along those lines. But we follow this man who moves into a health resort and he's super paranoid that someone is watching him. In the first few pages, there kind of is an entity watching him from afar. So I guess the paranoia is kind of justified. It's supposed to be some sort of horror story. I only got 30 pages in, so I really can't tell you much more than that. I absolutely struggled with this book. The writing felt like a psychiatrist's notes. I felt very detached. I didn't feel immersed at all. Normally it doesn't bother me, but the names were just names that I could not figure out how to pronounce, and because of the professional scientific kind of tone, the complicated names made it harder for me to stay focused on the book. I was struggling reading it physically. I tried the audiobook and still couldn't pay attention to it, and so I just decided to DNF it. So that was the Empusium. And then the second book that I DNF'd was Evenings and Weekends. I also don't remember who the author of that was, but I believe Evenings and Weekends follows a group of like 5 or so people. When I picked the book up, I thought that it would follow a friend group, but it really doesn't follow a friend group. It follows a group of people who are interconnected in some way, shape, or form. It's like a couple and their best friends and their best friend's mom and just a bunch of people who all have their own problems living in London. It takes place on a weekend in the middle of a heat wave. I don't remember how far I got into this book. I don't think it was that far. I think I maybe got a quarter of the way in. Yeah, I ended up DNFing it around 25%. And it was just because I could tell from there that this was going to be a book exclusively about miscommunication. Every problem that was getting set up was because one character didn't want to say something to another character, and so all of these people were going to find out intimate details about someone important in their lives from someone other than that important person, and I just didn't want to deal with it. I don't like books that revolve around miscommunication. If the entire plot can be solved by people sitting down, being an adult, and just having a conversation, I find it really irritating to read because they didn't have that conversation. So I put down Evenings and Weekends. I just knew at 25% that that wasn't for me, and I did not want to read it. Then the first book on the list that I actually did finish was So Let Them Burn by Kamilah Cole. This is the first book in the Divine Traders duology. If you saw my mid-year wrap-up, this not only was the worst book in this like 2-month span, but this was the worst book I've read all year. It really frustrated me. This is about 2 sisters. One is the chosen one for their small island, and the other is looking to join the military and get out of her sister's shadow. My main problem with this book is that it felt like a second book syndrome despite being the first book in the series. The book starts 5 years after the revolution against their attempted colonizers. So you don't get to see anything about the war. You don't get to see the chosen one become the chosen one. You don't get to see the queen of the island become queen of the island. But you spend the entire time referencing these events of the war. You spend the entire time learning the backstory of them. And so the entire book just feels like a setup for the second book in the duology. This book is exclusively information. Nothing happens in it. The tagline says that a dragon took her sister and she'll set the world on fire to bring her back. And I completely disagree. The female rage didn't feel like female rage. It just felt like our main characters were whining and complaining the whole time. They were upset that they were separated from their sister, but neither of them really did anything about it. They just talked about doing things about it. Each sister has like a love interest, and I didn't believe in either of those romances. I've just felt very annoyed reading this. I actually had to put the physical copy down and I ended up listening to it on audio, and that made it a lot easier to get through. This is a YA, and the voice and the writing feels very young adult. That might have added to the fact that I didn't really enjoy my read. I just had way higher expectations of this. It unfortunately did not live up to it. I forgot to mention, this was a 2-star read for me. Then the next book that I read was Lady Tremaine by Rachel Hochhauser. This is a Cinderella retelling from the perspective of Lady Tremaine. In this perspective shift, we see Cinderella as kind of a spoiled character rather than the maid from the Disney movie. And so this book kind of frames it in a way where Lady Tremaine is trying to hold her household together after her husband dies. She is trying to set her daughters up for success because they don't have the same luxuries that Cinderella does. Cinderella is by blood in the nobility somewhere, but her daughters are not. So she is doing everything that she can to set her daughters up with the prince so that they are set up for the rest of their life. I liked what the author did with the plot. I feel like I enjoyed the general trajectory of the plot, but I think I was missing a lot of Lady Tremaine's backstory. I didn't really emotionally connect to any of these characters. I was interested in the plot and I did care what happened, but I didn't really care about the characters themselves, if that makes sense. I feel like because there wasn't enough backstory for Lady Tremaine, I didn't have enough sympathy for her when the tougher times kind of came around in this book. I found the subplot with Otto and the prince a lot more fascinating than the main plot. So yeah, this ended up just being a 3-star read. I could see why people would enjoy it, but for me, it's not the most memorable. I didn't dislike this book, but it's not one that I will be raving or wanting to reread anytime soon. Then the next book on the list is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is the same author as Cursed Daughters, which I read last year in November and I loved. I thought that was a really well done story. This follows 2 sisters, Ayula and, oh my god, I can't remember how to say her name anymore. Korede? My Legos. Korede. I am probably butchering that and I apologize. Ayula is the perfect sister. She's the sister that everyone always falls for, the more charismatic, the more beautiful one. And Korede is her older sister, I believe, who is constantly looking out for her. Korede works at this hospital. She has a crush on this doctor and Ayula ends up flirting with this doctor, and the events of the story go from there. Other thing to mention, the last 3, I believe, boyfriends of Ayula's were all murdered by knife, and you kind of just don't know why. But yeah, this also was a 3-star read for me. It unfortunately did not live up to Cursed Daughters, and I believe that's mainly just because Correde is an annoying character. Her whole storyline is basically her being jealous of her sister, being jealous that the doctor asked her sister out on a date instead of her, and she almost can't decide who she wants to side with, the doctor or her sister. It was just a very frustrating read because I thought Correde was very whiny. I thought she was very self-pitying. I thought that the doctor was honestly really shallow and uninteresting as a character, and that Ayula was very stuck up and bratty, and so I didn't like any of these characters. I didn't care for the plot that was going on. I thought that the serial killer part was going to have be a little bit more in the forefront of the story. Yeah, it was just very frustrating for me to read because the whole book was basically Correde putting her self-worth in the hands of a man who just didn't care for her. Wasn't the biggest fan of this. Like I said, I also gave this 3 stars. The next book is The Inheritance of Orquidea Divina by Zoraida Cordova. This is a fantasy book. It follows this family whose matriarch is Orquidea Divina. She sends out these invitations to her funeral, I guess, and invites all of her family back to the family home where she dies. But before she dies, she passes off her magical abilities to 3 of her grandchildren. After her death, those 3 grandchildren then go on a journey to Ecuador. Wow, I'm really just guessing. Can you tell? These 3 grandchildren go on a journey to Ecuador to try to figure out why the rest of their family keeps mysteriously dying. Like, all of their family members are dying in quick succession. People keep getting attacked by a mysterious figure of light, and they have no idea why or what that is. And so they go to Ecuador to learn about Orquidea's past and try to save their family. This one, I think I would have liked if I read this at a different time. This I read right around the beginning of my reading slump, and most of the book I read with a migraine, which was not the smartest idea for me. So I feel like the rating might not be the most accurate. On the surface, this book has a lot of elements that I, on paper, would enjoy. It has a lot of fantastical and magical components. It has family relations, generational trauma. It includes hints of foreign cultures, dual timelines. Even the plot is very intriguing, but for me, I left this book feeling unsatisfied and just kind of confused. A lot of the magical creatures that came up all felt like plot devices. It felt like convenience and plot armor rather than actual components of the world. I feel like every single character in this, besides for Orquidea, felt very surface level. None of them got a lot of depth, in my opinion. And the generational trauma conversation also didn't say as much as I would have thought it would. Now, that part definitely could have been because I didn't have my full brain power and I might have just missed it. From what I can remember, there wasn't as much commentary about generational trauma as I was expecting. This I ended up rating 3.25 stars. The next book I don't have. I read it on my Kobo. It is Arsenic and Adobo by Manansala. It is the first book in the Tita Rosi's Kitchen Mysteries series, and it follows a girl, Lila? Oh my god, do I know her name? I didn't write it down. Okay, whatever. It follows this girl who goes back to her hometown after failing at her career. She works in her family restaurant, and her rival, who happens to be a food critic, ends up dying on the restaurant property. And this triggers a whole investigation because everyone is obviously blaming her family since it happened after he ate something that they served. But she's like, no, my family is innocent, and she goes and tries to solve the case to clear her family's name. I thought that this was a really fun, cozy mystery. I absolutely loved it because of all of the Filipino culture that was infused in it. As someone who lives away from my family and away from other Filipinos, I feel like it just gave me a sense of home. There's a very low-key love triangle in it, as well as a conversation about familial expectations and trying to balance personal goals with what your family wants. I feel like neither of those were explored as much as I would have liked, but I would expect that both of those will continue to develop as the series goes on. There are 6 books in the series right now, I think. The mystery itself ended up dragging a little bit for me just because we ended up going from restaurant to restaurant that the food critic had gone to, and each restaurant didn't really have a unique perspective to give. So after like the second or third one, it just felt very repetitive. For me, this rating is a bit biased because of the Filipino elements. There were recipes that were included that mixed Filipino and American food, and I just loved every single Filipino reference involved in this. It just gave me that feeling of home. And so I ended up rating this book a 3.5 star. Then getting into all of my 3.75 reads. The first one is Molka by Monika Kim. This is a Korean based story surrounding like hidden cameras. We have 2 general plots going on. One is about a security guy who has hidden cameras in the bathroom, in the women's stalls at his work. He develops a crush on a girl at his work just based off of those hidden cameras. And then the second plot revolves around that girl and her boyfriend. The 2 of them get caught in a hidden camera scandal because a video of an intimate moment gets posted online, and then we get to see the fallout of this. I thought that this was honestly really disturbing, but it wasn't as disturbing as I originally thought it would be. We spend way less time in the voyeur's perspective than I thought we would. We spend most of the time in the girl's perspective. And since she is the victim in this case, it makes it a lot more digestible to read. It's still tough to read because like just imagining yourself in that position and being caught on hidden cameras in some of your most vulnerable moments is just incredibly disturbing. But it's definitely easier for me to take in than to read from the twisted mind of the voyeur. The ending of this I found a bit unsatisfying, but I feel like that was an intentional choice by the author. I also think that the messaging was very obvious in this. There wasn't really any subtlety to the messaging. It showed the distinction between how men and women are treated in cases like this, especially rich men. There was a subplot in here with the main character's sister that just felt really random and out of place. It was reminiscent of Bat Eater to me, but it just didn't make any sense to be included in there, especially because I don't really think that subplot had a conclusion. Overall, I found this a really fast-paced read and I was very intrigued by it. I was very intrigued and immersed the entire time, so like I said, this was a 3.75. Then the next book is Under the Same Stars by Libba Bray. This is a not dual, what is 3? Triple That doesn't sound like it would be the same as dual. There are 3 timelines going on in this book. One in 2020, one in the 1980s, and one in the 1940s, I believe. 2 of the timelines take place in Germany, and the 2020 one takes place in New York during the pandemic. Each of these timelines interconnected, but I feel like the connections weren't as strong as I was expecting them to be, I guess. For a lot of this book, I felt removed from the events of the story. I felt like people were telling me the story rather than me experiencing it with our characters. Because we follow 3 different timelines, we are switching perspectives frequently, and I found myself not really wanting to switch when the time came. I just wanted to ride out the story that we were following at the moment. The 1939 story was the most intriguing to me. That one took place in Nazi Germany, and it followed these 2 girls that went missing. I feel like the other 2 stories and timelines in this book just weren't as strong as that 1939 storyline. I also think that this was just a victim to the time that I read it, similar to The Inheritance of Orquidea Divina. This book probably would have been rated higher and would have been enjoyed more if I had read it when I wasn't in a reading slump. This took me a really long time to read. I was struggling through it and kind of forcing my way through it, and I don't think that was a result of the writing. I think that was just my mood and where I was at. I would still recommend this. It is YA, and I think you can kind of tell that it's YA in the writing, but I do think that it is worth the read, even if I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Oh my god. Do any of you guys watch the librarian on TikTok who does the book return game? Because my books just had a mini topple. Anyway, the next book with the same rating is 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. This is a book that follows a trial about a school shooting. It happens in a small town, so a lot of our characters are all connected. The shooter used to be childhood friends with the daughter of the judge on the case. We get to see each of their perspectives, plus the mom of the shooter's perspective. The judge's daughter is also a potential witness in this case. She should have been a witness, but can't remember the details of what happened due to either physical or mental trauma. I think that this was done well, but to me it felt like Beartown, just not done as well as Beartown. You also see the backstory of all of our characters, the shooting and the trial, and so the book alternates between the 3. It'll kind of reveal things as the story progresses, as the trial is progressing. I really like that kind of storytelling because it keeps you intrigued as things are unfolding, and I think Jodi Picoult did a really good job at keeping up the pace and having everything that was mentioned be important later on. However, it didn't hit as hard as something like Beartown did. Similar to Beartown, although this focuses on tragedies experienced by teenagers, I feel like the main themes of this book actually have to do with parenting. I feel like it's a lot more focused on parenting and how, as a small town, as a society, how do you move past such a big tragedy. I think the main reason why Beartown worked for me and this one didn't work as well is because in 19 minutes, I felt like an outsider. I didn't feel like one of the town. I felt like I was learning about things as if I was watching it on the news rather than being in the town and experiencing it with everybody else. I think the other thing is that I saw the plot twist in this from a mile away. I knew how this book was going to end, and so that just made the ending not hit as hard. There was also a really random romance thrown in here, and I still don't understand why. Even though I might not have enjoyed it, it's not that I did enjoy it, okay? I've rated it 3.75 stars. I did enjoy this, but I feel like I am lower on this than a lot of the other reviews I've seen on this. A lot of people tend to rate this 5 stars, and so I do agree that you should give this a shot and read this. I feel like a lot of my 3-star reviews sound like I didn't like the book. When I did, okay, I did like the book. I just didn't love the book. And so I tend to focus in my 3-star reviews on why I didn't love the book rather than why I liked it. The last book under 4 stars is Hot Summer by Elle, Everhart. This is a reality TV, I think it's supposed to be based off of Love Island type of story. I was recommended this by a Barnes & Noble employee, and she pitched it to me as Love Island, but if the women thought the men sucked and started dating each other. I think that's pretty accurate. We follow this girl, Kaz, who gets put on a Love Island type TV show because of her job, and she just goes through all of the Love Island type scenarios trying to date around, but she ends up falling for a girl instead of a guy. It's a sapphic romance, if you couldn't tell. I had the absolute best time reading this. I loved the characters in this. I loved the side characters. I feel like they formed such a cute and fun friend group. The friendships between these people felt very, very genuine to me, and I really loved watching them interact. And while the plot was super fun, it was incredibly predictable. I feel like I was looking for a little bit more mess and a little bit more drama since this is reality TV based, but I still really enjoyed it. I kind of wonder if the reason I enjoyed it so much was because it was sapphic. Like, I feel like if this was a straight couple, I don't think I would have enjoyed this as much. I think the fact that it was sapphic bumped it up a solid bit for me, to be honest. I would recommend this. I thought this was a great time. I think it would be a great summer read. I randomly read this in March. I binged it. I think it took me a day, maybe 2 to finish this. So definitely recommend. Now into my 4-star reads, we have Good and Evil and Other Stories by Samanta Schweblin. This is a short story collection, and all of them have the same kind of theme. Each of these haunting tales, we examine a life at a point of no return. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I don't read a ton of short stories, but I thought all of these were well written and intriguing. I found myself a lot of the time wanting more when the story ended. Even when I finished it, I already thought to myself that I wanted to reread it and kind of look closer at the themes of grief. I feel like there was a lot that I missed just casually reading it, but even as a casual read, I enjoyed each story. All of them had some sort of theme about grief or depression and where people will go from there. My favorite personally was An Eye in the Throat. That followed a mute son and a dad who felt very guilty about the son's situation. I thought that one was really intriguing. I really liked that one. I just thought it was really impressive how Schweblin could make a story so intriguing and so tense in such a short amount of pages. So I would absolutely recommend this. Also a 4-star, I have One Golden Summer by Carley Fortune. If you saw my reading vlog for this book, you'll know that my rating on this is conflicted. I personally had a really good time reading this story. I thought it was a lot of fun. I loved our characters. I loved both Alice and Charlie as characters. Charlie reminded me a lot of my guy friends, and Alice reminded a lot of me when I was younger in high school. There were cheesy moments in here, and a couple times I did have to start skimming because it was just creating too much secondhand embarrassment for me. But I feel like the tension between the two characters was well done, and overall I just had a really good time reading it. The reason why I remain confused on what to rate this book is because it felt like a copy-paste of Sam's Letters to Jennifer by James Patterson. Both books follow a city girl who goes back to the lake house from her childhood after her grandmother has a medical incident. While there, she has a summer fling with a boy from her past who refuses to commit to her past the summer because he has a secret. And that secret, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but that secret is exactly the same in both books. It's not even a different secret. It's the exact same secret with the exact same timeline. The only difference is that I think Sam's letters to Jennifer had a little bit more stakes than this book did. The plots are so copy-paste that it kind of feels like plagiarism to me. To be fully honest, I enjoyed reading this more than I enjoyed reading Sam's letters to Jennifer, because One Golden Summer had a very carefree energy to it and it felt like a summer read. But there is something in me that just feels wrong rating a book that feels like plagiarism so highly. The 4 stars is already brought down. Like, if I hadn't read Sam's letters to Jennifer, I think this would have been closer to a 5-star for me. But because it's so copy-paste, I just don't want to rate it that highly. I don't know. Like, I almost feel like I need to lower it more than 4 stars. 4 stars is where I landed at, so that's where we have this. Then getting into my 4.5s, I have 2 of them. First one is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This is the same author as The Hate You Give. It follows a girl, Bree, who wants to be a rapper. Bree's aunt brings her into this club and signs her up for rap battles so that she can get attention. And in the process of chasing after her rap career, she goes viral for a song that kind of gives her a bad reputation. After her song goes viral, she gets the reputation of being involved in gangs, and that's just not who Bree is. And so we kind of follow that complicated duality of what the public assumption is and who Bree really is, and what that really means for her and her community. I really enjoyed this. The writing is very fast-paced and easy to read, and as usual, the topics of racism are super important. This book very heavily focused on the realities that Black people face on a daily basis and showed how they need to act differently, because people are very quick to make assumptions and classify them as aggressive or dangerous. On top of all of that, like, racism content, it also highlights typical teenage problems. So I feel like it's a very good YA read, but it's easily enjoyable as an adult as well. I feel like if you liked The Hate You Give, you should definitely give this one a shot as well. I thought that this was really good. I read The Hate You Give years ago, so I don't know for sure which one I prefer, but both are really good. Angie Thomas's writing is so easily bingeable, but it always has a good message in it. Then the next book is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This follows a group of Oxford students who are studying translation. In this world, translation helps them control silver, which gives them power to be able to do different things based off of translation. I really can't describe it to you. It's just something that you would have to learn from the book itself, but I really enjoyed this. R.F. Kuang's writing is so beautiful. I feel like the plot, the magical theory, the world were all impeccably done. I resonated a lot with the themes in this book, with being disconnected from your culture, with struggling between your own personal goals and like self-preservation versus the goals of a collective group. And I really liked how this book highlighted the gray morality of change and revolution. Like I mentioned in my mid-year wrap-up, this book was really good, but it's written like a textbook. There are footnotes everywhere that help with world building and just give you extra information that you don't really ask for. And I think that if you're not interested in linguistics and the conversations of translation just aren't interesting to you, you might start thinking that this is a slog to get through, because she does focus a lot on how things translate and how those translations then impact the rest of the world. I feel like this could be a very hit or miss book, but for me, it really worked. I enjoyed it a lot. Towards the end, it lost a little bit of steam for me, but the way that the book concluded as a whole really wrapped it up nicely. So highly recommend. I know I'm really late to the party, and so everyone probably has already read this or decided that they were never going to read this, but I still recommend you read it. Then the next book, second to last one, is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is the third book in the Part of Your World Interconnected standalone trilogy. We follow Emma and Justin. Both of them have this curse where every person they date will find their true love after they break up with Justin. And so they meet each other on Reddit and decide that they will trial date so that when the two of them break up, Emma and Justin can then find their true loves. I was very skeptical about this book just based off of that premise. I don't like books that are heavily focused in pop culture. I like them to be a little bit more timeless, and I like to be able to question when it was written, but somehow this book worked for me. Justin was probably my favorite male character out of the trilogy, which is absolutely wild to say because as that trilogy was going, I loved those characters. I really enjoyed our main characters in Part of Your World and yours truly. I thought both of them were just so charming. And then getting to Just for the Summer, Justin would put together these Google forms that would ask for Emma's opinions about what kind of date she wanted, what kind of food she would want, what kind of clothing she preferred to wear. Would she rather do a lot, do a little? And then based off of her answers, he would plan the date, pick where to go and what to do, and kind of tailor it to show her around the city and just give her the best experience possible. And I love that kind of effort. It was absolutely insane. And then after the date, he would send out another Google form that would ask her for her opinions and like if there was anything and if she enjoyed it. So absolutely loved it. I loved him as a character. I thought that the conflicts that they had were very realistic. Despite everything that Justin had going on, he still did his absolute best to make time for her and prove to her that she was important to him. The third act conflict absolutely ripped my heart to shreds. I didn't think this was going to hit me the way that yours truly did, and it just came out of nowhere and hit me with a ton of bricks. I really did enjoy this book. I think the only reason it didn't hit 5 stars for me was, in fact, the number of pop culture references included in it, because like I said, I really hate pop culture references in my romance stories. I don't want to know what time it's supposed to be unless it is important to move a plot forward. I don't like it. I'd rather it be very timeless so that it doesn't come across as cringy later. Highly recommend. Really good. Similar to Babel, I'm pretty sure everyone who is going to read this already read it because I'm so late to the party, but it doesn't change the fact I thought this was really good. Then finally, we get to the last book. Oh my gosh, the best book that I read in the months of March and April was City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. This is the third book in the Mortal Instruments series. To be fair, this is a bit biased of a pick because this was a reread, and the fact that I am rereading this, I don't know if I rated it a 5-star because I wasn't rating my books the first time I read this, but I feel like if it wasn't a 5-star, the reread is what bumped it to a 5-star for me because I had such a good time reading this. I don't want to give you a plot synopsis because, like I said, this is the third book in the series, but book 1 of the Mortal Instruments series follows Clary, who discovers that her mom is actually part of this hidden universe called the Shadowhunters universe, and the Shadowhunters are these Nephilim that fight demons and save humanity, basically. Her mom gets kidnapped and put in a coma, and she spends the entire series learning about the Shadowhunter universe and trying to save her mom, trying to save the world. But going back to book 3, I think this one I rated a 5 stars because it's just so fun to read this, knowing where this plot goes, knowing how the rest of these books go and how the plot in this book ends up. I love seeing all of the breadcrumbs, all of the hints and foreshadowing that Cassandra Clare includes in this. It's just so interesting to me to see everything that I missed the first time around because I just didn't know any better the first time around. I love, love, love seeing Clary and Jace together. Their banter and the way that they interact with each other is just so fun. I feel like the way that Cassandra Clare writes Yearning is just so well done. I honestly don't know what I was referring to in this, which is crazy, but in my review, I wrote that while it's not as intricate as the politics or commentary in Mistborn, Cassandra Clare still has more social commentary than you would expect. I honestly don't really remember what happened in this book to make me think that, but you know, I don't remember it, but I'll stand by it. What I do remember is that her writing is just really fast paced. It's so easily bingeable, and I am excited to read books 4, 5, and 6 and see how those plot lines go and get to see all the little details that I missed in those 3 books once I get past the Infernal Devices series, which I don't want to talk about right now. But yeah, those are the 17 books that I read in March and April. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the books and ratings that I have in this video. I don't really want to ask you what you read in March and April, so let me know what you're reading right now. If you stuck around this long with me, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!